Alright everybody, hello. Today I got another build for you guys. Now this one here, I was actually quite surprised on the damage output of this build and how much fun it is just to play this on its own. You can play this one in so many different ways. This is the Arcane Archer. I absolutely love this build, and now I played it a little bit in actual D&D, and I thought that it was like, it wasn't all that great, but I had fun with it still. I love the ability to, cast up magical arrows, all that fun stuff. But in Baldur's Gate 3, this build that I got for you today is actually so much stronger than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be one of those, it's like, oh, you play for fun, but it's not all that good. But no, this build here that I have is so unbelievably strong. So today we're going to be going over the level up process, the items I used throughout the entire game, and a few optional items that I didn't use but I think would also be good, and the end game build, and we will also have an example of combat later on in the video. So let's go ahead and get started with character creation. Alright, and here we are at character creation. Now, with this build, the Arcane Archer, we will be going primarily into Arcane Archer. We're going to be going 11 levels into it and then 1 level into Rogue just to have a little bit more damage output. So, with all that being said, there are quite a few characters that you can use. Obviously, I really liked using a Dark Urge playthrough with this one. My character, I called him the Ball's Eye, and you'll see kind of like more when it comes to that character of like why I kind of used him as a Dark Urge playthrough. But you could also go good and, play Astarion with this build, as he is a rogue. Now, he's supposed to be an arcane trickster, so doing the Arcane Archer kind of makes sense a little bit for him if you just focus on, the ranged aspect. But also with the build, you can also focus a little bit on melee as well. You're not only limited to using ranged attacks. But obviously, I know the majority is playing custom, and this is a role-playing game, so please do whatever your heart desires. This is, ultimately for fun. This is not supposed to be a one-all guide of this is what you should do. If you're not doing it, you're playing it wrong. Again, RPG, do whatever you feel. But I will still kind of be going over some of the races that I think are just a little bit better for this build entirely. So one thing here is Elf. I'm always a big fan of Elf. With the Dark Vision and Fey Accessory, we don't really care too much about the Elven weapon training for the most part, because when we're going to start leveling up as a fighter, the fighter gets access to all this stuff in general. But if you do run the Elf and you go Wood Elf, it would make sense kind of like, for a more, you kind of think of the Wood Elves in a lot of fantasy inspirations as kind of more archer-based, with a little bit of short sword kind of style. So I like this thematically-wise, but also, the extra movement speed is always really good. You can run with Tiefling to get a little bit of the Hellish Resistance, getting a little bit of Fire Resistance. You can also do something similar with the Dragonborn. Also, obviously, the Dragonborn look the coolest in the game, in my opinion. Those are also really nice. You can go Githyanki. The Githyanki are really nice, getting a whole bunch of cool abilities as a race. They get a bunch of special psychic abilities as you level up, and they have certain items that you get access to that give you a little bit of an extra boost if you are a Githyanki. So those are kind of the ones that I recommend. Half Elf is what I always go for. On my character, I did a high half Elf. It's just my favorite class. I started a whole bunch in patch 8, and now, like, kind of going through, I'm thinking, like, I did it for more RPG reasons, but, if we wanted to go for more of a, like, optimal playthrough, I would kind of go with Wood Half Elf, because Half Elf is my favorite, and getting the extra movement speed is really nice. But, any race doesn't really matter. What really does matter is just kind of like your class that you start with. I very much recommend going with the Fighter subclass to start. It doesn't matter this race, so we'll just stick with the Drow Half Elf. That's completely fine. But starting off with the fighter, you get a great amount of abilities and proficiencies immediately. You get access to pretty much every single weapon in the game. Simple weapons, you can see over here, simple, martial, spears, pikes, halberds, glaives, all of the armors and shields, and you get a good amount of good saving throws and a good amount of skills as well. So I highly recommend doing that. And obviously, this is going to be an Arcane Archer, so we want to make sure that we have the archery fighting style as well. And then when it comes to background, again, RPG, do whatever you want there. But this build doesn't necessarily rely too much on charisma. You can obviously do it if it's going to be the front of your party. You can run with a whole bunch of charisma. I like Guild Artisan because insight and persuasion is really good, but you could think that yourself as a sage that ended up really liking archery, and then you could kind of make that kind of role playing there. But all of these are good. Just kind of do whatever you feel your character fits the best. And now when it comes to abilities, this is going to be a little bit of you could do however you want. But I think I would highly recommend actually having not that much strength. I would go actually just 10 into strength just to have that. And then put everything into dexterity as far as you can and constitution. Doing these two makes your character very tanky but still pretty fast, so you could still use a heavy armor proficiency if you really like, but you can also do it a little bit less if you feel that way too. I'm just gonna put the last one to charisma, and then this build right here should be kind of like the basis. You can lower wisdom a little bit to increase like charisma if you're the front facing party member and all that fun stuff. You could even get strength to go even lower if you want charisma to be higher. Either way, I just make sure you kind of put in dexterity and constitution as your main ones, and because you're not really going to be using strength with a bow, and we're going to be wielding finesse weapons to make more use of our dexterity. So this is kind of the main ability point, like where you should put them. But now let's go ahead and get started with the level up process of this Arcane Fighter. Alright, and here we are with the leveling up process, and with this build, it's actually very simple of what we want to be doing, especially because we're just going to be focusing mainly on the fighter, so we're just going to kind of breeze through some of these levels because they're very easy and simple to kind of understand what the fighter does, because the fighter is such a very nice and easy class to start with. So, at level 2, we get Action Surge, which is such a great ability, so we want to go ahead and just accept that, level up to level 3, in fighter, and this is where we could pick our subclass. So obviously we are going with the Arcane Archer subclass. This subclass is going to be great. We are completely reliant on our Arcane Arrow, which lets us do our Arcane Shots, which are considered spells. So we have a bunch of different types of arrows that we can send out. So there is the Banishing Arrow. You can ignore the Acid and Fire, that's just the stuff I am wearing currently. But you can use the Banishing Arrow, which does 1d8 plus 5 piercing, and then has a chance to banish the target, which is really nice. They have the Beguiling Arrow. Use enchantment magic to deal an additional 2d12 psychic damage, and then they must succeed a saving throw or become charmed, which is nice. The Bursting Arrow. Use evocation magic to make your arrow explode on impact to deal an additional 2d6 force damage to targets within 3 meters, so it's a good explosion arrow. The Enfeebling Arrow, which does extra 2d6 necrotic damage and makes him feeble. And then there's Grasping Arrow, which does poison damage and could and reduces movement, and they will take 2d6 extra slashing damage when they try to move. There's Seeking Arrow, which basically just, it does an additional 1d6 force damage, and it possibly inflicts Fairy Fire, which is basically you gain advantage on the next hit. And then there's Shadow Arrow. Use Illusion Magic to deal additional 2d12 psychic damage, and they could become blind. And then Piercing Arrow. Use Transmutation Magic to make this attack go through a line, so it can hit a bunch of targets at once as long as they're in the line, dealing an additional 1d6 damage, and they must save it, and they must succeed a saving throw or be dealt an additional 1d6 damage. All of these are very good in their own spot. There are a few that I highly recommend. I would recommend that you take either a few of the extra damaging ones. That's kind of the point of this build, is to do a whole bunch of damage. I personally, over the psychic ones, choose the Shadow Arrow because being blinded is a very good status to have on the enemy. I also run the Enfeebling Arrow for some extra necrotic damage, and being feeble is pretty strong because if you get a target with feeble, their weapon attacks deal half the damage. So it's just really good defensively, especially if you're in a bind. And then I go for the Grasping Arrow for extra poison damage and to kind of slow down enemies so I can get away pretty fair. These are the main 3 that I use, but you'll see that we'll get a few more of these later on, and I'll kind of go over which ones I would recommend. And then for cantrip, I just take guidance. Guidance is just such a good cantrip, not only for your character, but for the other characters in the party. If they're, talking and they need guidance on an ability check, you could just give them an extra 1d4, and then boom, just like that, you can pass the check. But that is level 3 for the fighter. Now things get to be a little bit more simple. because we could either replace a spell, which just basically lets us change our arcane shots, but we're going to keep what we have there. Now, here is a very important one. The first one you have to get is Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter is such a good feat for any mainly ranged weapon attack dealer. So ranged weapon attacks have a that you're proficient with have a -5 penalty to attack roll, but deal an additional 10 damage. You could toggle it on and off, but I never really toggle it off because the bonuses are just so high, and we're going to be focusing a lot on our dexterity and leveling that up. So the more that we just level that up, the more we're going to just absolutely hit without any issues, and we'll do a whole bunch of extra damage with this feature, the all-in feature. So we're definitely taking the Sharpshooter one. If you are not, I will say this is the only one where if you don't get Sharpshooter on an Arcane Archer build, that is probably a big issue because you will be missing out on a ton of damage. But again, to each their own, to each their own. Now we get extra attack, and we get the option to replace another spell if we want to, but we like what we got. Being able to send 2 arrows out per turn is great. So great, we got extra attack. Fantastic. Now we are fighter level 6. We get another feat and another chance to replace our spells, but we like what we got. Right here, I'll go over a few ones. Obviously, the ability improvement to increase your dexterity is very, very good. Especially now at level 6, you could have the Hag's Hair give you a little bit extra dexterity, so you can hit 20 in your dexterity with just 1 ability improvement, which is really, really nice. You can also go over some stuff like there's durable if you want to get, you know, even more like constitution later on, which is fine. Mobile isn't all that bad either. I could definitely see it, especially because if you move after making a melee attack, you don't provoke opportunity attacks, which is actually really nice for this build. You can kind of just stab and run away without causing that much issue. And with having a lot of movement for being, if you're a wood elf, obviously, I'm a high elf, but having more movement is just always, always good. You can get some other stuff like the medium armor master or the light armor master. In this build, I am actually going to be showing off a non-armor of agility or Yuan-Ti scale armor build because I just feel like those two items that give you a full bonus to your AC of your full dex modifier is, like, I would say boring, but it still does really well. But you'll see a little bit more about this build later on. But that's kind of like the main ones that I go for. You can kind of do whatever you want here. If you really want to, you can kind of get Savage Attacker. If you really feel like you're in melee a lot and you want to just do a little bit more damage. But this one doesn't really make sense too much on an Arcane Archer. So I kind of just go for, you know, mobile, or you can go for the lightly armored kind of stuff if you just want to get a little bit of dexterity. Or the light armor, medium armor master if you're going to be doing that to get extra dexterity bonuses, which isn't bad, especially if you like the medium armors that you have. But for me, I kind of just completely put everything into my dexterity, so I'm just going to go ahead and be doing that. Alright, and now we are fighter level 7. We get a few extra subclass features, and all these are really, really good. So we get more arcane arrows, which are great. But now all of our ranged attacks are considered magical to overcome resistances. So now we can go ahead and we can attack, you know, some like ghosts that have resistance to necrotic, but we can still hit them with the feeble arrow, and it's still fantastic. And when you miss with any magical ranged attack, use a bonus action to attack the closest target with the same attack instead. So you won't be missing out on any damage that turn if you want to use your bonus action. And we don't really use our bonus action all too often with this build, so having a good use for it is fantastic. And now we gain another Arcane Shot. For this one, I kind of like the banishing arrow, but it is, you know, a chance to banish, which is still normally a pretty high DC for what I've used, so I don't really go for that. But you could definitely go for the bursting arrow here, or you could go for the piercing arrow. These are the other two that I think are really, really good. This one, doing kind of like an AoE attack, is very nice. You can also, I would even recommend this even for your first few ones, but I just like the extra damage of the other ones, you know, with the poison, the psychic, and the necrotic, is just fantastic. But any of these are actually good. There aren't ones that are just like bad. They're all good in their own right. So we're just gonna go ahead and grab the AoE blasting one. All right, next we have another feat. So For this one, I am going to go ahead and probably just grab another like ASI here. Or I could just go ahead and grab like, I don't know. I'll just go another ASI here. We can go on Dexterity and Constitution. And we could just do that. So we have our Dexterity at 20 there, which is nice. Now, Fighter gets now the Indomitable feat, which basically just means whenever you fail a saving throw, roll again and use that result instead. So you can kind of, if you fail a saving throw, this can pop up and then you can pass it instead. Not always a guarantee, but it is a better chance. It's always nice to have. But then you can replace an Arcane Shot, but we're not going to be doing that on this level up. Fighter level 10, we get another subclass feature, which is just basically more arrows, and then we get another Arcane Shot, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the Piercing Arrow. Those are the main ones that I like, and so that's the ones we will be using there. So now we are Fighter level 11, and now we have improved extra attack, which is why we are mainly focusing on this Fighter build. We want to get all the way to level 11, so we can get improved extra attack, so we could actually shoot 3 arrows, and if we action surge, we could shoot 6 arrows. It's an insane amount of damage that we could do in a single turn. So we want to make sure that we can get all the way to improved extra attack for that bonus there. Now, when it comes to level 12 Fighter, you don't really get much. You get another feat if you want to. So if you wanted to, get like the durable feat to increase your constitution plus 1 more and also get full hit points on a short rest, I wouldn't blame you. That's not a horrible feat at all. You can go now into the mobile feat if you feel like you just want to go full into Fighter, which is also good. But for me, I always like multi-classing. I don't know what it is about me. I'm just a big fan of hitting like the add class button and then mixing things together. So I actually really like doing the, also, one quick thing. I tried using Barbarian with this build. The Barbarian Rage, actually stops you from doing your Arcane Shots because they are considered spells. So be wary that if you are going for this build and as an Arcane Archer, you cannot, use Rage as well as your Arcane Shots. At least that's what happened in my playthrough. I don't know if that's the main intent of the build. If not, you could definitely go for the Rage to do extra damage. So you could go ahead and do that if you want to kind of just, have a little bit of extra stuff there. But for me, there was a few ones that I tried. I tried thinking of, maybe getting a little bit of Cleric to have a little bit of extra bonuses from these, getting some cool spells if we wanted to use. Then there's stuff like Druid if we wanted to get, some cool spells, but it doesn't really like fit too much with this build. For me, I kind of just went Rogue. Rogue, the only thing it really gets is sneak attack at level 1. Which is just extra damage every other turn. Especially if you were going to be on the back lines, you're basically getting an extra 1d6 of damage for the most part. There's not a lot of negative opportunities to not have sneak attack active. So I would just recommend going Rogue. Rogue has been the most consistently good for me, so I would go for that. But I'm eager to hear what you guys think about like some other one class dips with this build. Rogue for me is just the one that I liked the most. Alright, and now that we've kind of gone in through the level up process, I'm going to go ahead and show you some great items that you could use for this build. Alright, and here we are with the items that I would highly recommend that you run with for this build specifically. This build is all about kind of just doing a whole bunch of damage in one turn, running away, and then doing it all over again. So we'll get to the end game build in a little bit, but to kind of get you an idea, we kind of just have like 2 daggers here, just in case we get in the melee. We do damage with our bow, and then we just have a bunch of extra things just to kind of help out. So like early on, you could get the Gloves of Hailthorns to just, do an extra spell on that one, kind of giving you that ranger vibe. Obviously, Gloves of Archery is a very, very good start because you just get an extra base damage, which is fantastic. And then you can have the Hell Gloom Gloves here as well to just do some extra, little bit of fire damage on your attacks. You could definitely run with just like a heavy armor in the beginning, and then maybe just like the marksman hat to get extra bonus to range attack rolls, or you can kind of go the at the end of Act 1 you can get this one so you can't be critically hit, and you get access to Hunter's Mark, and Hunter's Mark is very, very good and kind of carried me throughout the majority of the game. So this would be really good. But the reason why the Covert Cowl is here is this build can kind of be ran with a crit build, which is the main kind of build that I have here. Now, I'm not a player who really like throws down darkness, hides in the shadows, and attacks, and then kind of like lets that like slowly tick down. I like just running in and then just doing a whole bunch of things and then running out. I'm not a big brain for a whole bunch of setup. So running this is good. You do get an increase to your critical hit when you are obscured, so there is that. But you can get just kind of like an idea there. There's these bows that you can kind of run with any bow you want. This one gives you advantage on monstrosities, which is good in the early game, and gives you access to Hunter's Mark as well, which is great. As soon as you get the Grim Skull Helm, I kind of swapped to using the Jolt Shooter. The Jolt Shooter just gives you lightning charges whenever you deal damage with it, which is nice. I kind of just liked having the ability to use Hunter's Mark, which is why I didn't immediately switch to the Jolt Shooter. But both of these are good for like the early parts of the game, and actually for a good chunk of it as well. But while you're going in through the game, you could kind of just like have any sort of dagger you could get here. You get the Knife of the Undermountain King very early. It does increase your critical hit chance, which is great to have at the beginning. And you can kind of just run that with a shield, just to have a little bit more AC. And you can even run the Adamantine Shield so that you can have critical hits if you aren't wanting to use the Grimskull Helm and wanting to use something different as well. Both of those work. So that was kind of like just that. It was kind of just that build for the majority of the game. I also had the evasive boots on for a little while. Just, you know, extra AC is always nice. But my build was kind of pretty stagnant for a while, and it was still doing good. Like, this build did a whole bunch of damage, and so I was pretty happy with it. But later on, I ended up trying to go for a full critical hit build. So we got for the final build, we have the Saravox Horned Helmet, which increases our chance to critical hit by one lower. We also have the Shade Slayer Cloak. You can kind of see why now we're running with a Dark Urge build. I kind of like went out, got a Dark Urge build, and then kind of ran with this. I really, really like it. While hiding, increase critical hit chance is reduced by 1. So if we do hide a little bit, that is great. We also have this armor. Now, this armor, I think, is more fun than, you know, running with, like, the Jolty Vest or for a little bit of medium armor when using the Jolt Shooter, or the Yuan-Ti Scale Armor, or the Armor of Persistence here. Like, obviously, the Armor of Persistence gives us a lot more AC, a plus 3 AC, but also this personally just looks a lot cooler for this build. And also, you could also run this if you're not doing a Dark Urge playthrough. You can kind of run with the Cloak of Elemental Absorption to get a little bit more damage when you get hit by an elemental attack, or the Cloak of Protection, and running this, and you get access to Shield. And, you know, Shield is very, very good, but I'm a big fan of Dark Urge, and so we kind of ran with this build here. So we just increase our critical hit chance there. But the best part about this armor is enemies within 3 meters become vulnerable to piercing damage, and all of our arrows deal piercing damage. And so you can see it does 1d8 plus 7 piercing, and if they are vulnerable and that close, we can do a whole bunch of damage to whatever is close to us, and we can even knock some things out if we really want to, and then we can get away for free if we don't have the mobile feat. So that's why I really like this armor, and we also get plus 2 to initiative, which is also really, really good. And we get our full dex modifier added to this thing because it is a light armor. Next, we have the Helldust Gloves. We don't really use it for the Raise of Fire cantrips, or, I mean, the spell save DC is nice if we're running some of those Arcane Shots that have a bunch of saving throws. We have a few of them, but it's not really the main thing. The main thing is that it deals an additional 1d6 fire damage on a shot, which is fantastic. Now, I ended up swapping to the Boots of Persistence at the later end of the game, just because I like the Freedom of Movement and Longstrider. Freedom of Movement kind of gives you, can't be reduced in difficult terrain or spells or magical effects, and we can't be paralyzed or restrained, which is very good as an archer, so that we can't get pinned down and then absolutely knocked out. And then Longstriders, you know, get extra movement speed is always really good. So that's kind of the build I have there. And then I kind of ran with the the Amulet of Harpers to get shield back, because having shield is always really nice to have. We have the Caustic Band for extra acid damage, and then we also have the Killer's Sweetheart to lean a little bit more into the Dark Urge kind of side of things. When you kill a creature, your next attack roll will be a critical hit. Once it's used, it refreshes on a long rest. So if we desperately need a crit, even going through all this and we still don't get a crit, we can have a 1 crit basically, and that's really good. So now we kind of get the idea of we're doing a whole bunch of crits and we have extra damage and a little bit of defense. Let's go ahead and go into the items. So I kind of went into the Knife of the Undermountain King, which increases the chance of critical hits, but we also get, you know, when you roll 2 or less damage, reroll the die, taking the highest result, which is very, very good. So we could just do as more damage as we possibly can. We also have the Blade of the First Blood, increasing our chance for a critical hit, and we gain True Strike, which is like okay, but we have this in our offhand because as you see the ability right here, creatures hit with this weapon receive vulnerability to piercing damage, and if those enemies are right near us, the Ballless Armor kind of takes care of that ability, making them vulnerable to piercing already, and you can't be doubly vulnerable. So we kind of just ran this on our offhand so we could get a little bit extra AC, just +1. Anything is good. And then the main weapon that we went with. Now, there are a few good longbows in this game. Like, obviously, there's the one that give you fire and cold resistance and haste. And then there's I think it's the Guntir Meal, which is the legendary bow there as well. But this one, improved critical, is what we're kind of like aiming for. The wielder doubles their proficiency bonus when rolling ranged weapons with this attack, which is great. And it's a +2 weapon. And that is important. Because with this build, we do like using the Drake Throat Glaive or the Flail of Ages, because they give you an additional bonus. So you can see here, this we don't really going to be using this for, you know, offensive or our offense. We're going to be using it for the Draconic Elemental Weapon ability. So I'll kind of show you guys off. So I'll show off that thing real quick. So we have our Deadshot here, does 1d8 +7 piercing, +2 acid, +2 fire, right? So let's just go ahead, drop these 2 things off, and equip this glaive. Now, we'll go ahead and put the Deadshot weapon down, and we can go ahead and cast the Draconic Elemental Weapon, giving it a +1 to attack rolls, and because it's a +2 weapon, it actually gets that to make it a +3, and we get additional damage. For me, I'm a big fan of lightning, so we're going to go ahead and imbue this weapon with lightning. Boom. So now it is an elemental weapon. Let's go ahead and go back to this. We'll go ahead and throw the Knife of the Undermountain King right back on here. And that dagger. And we can pick up the Deadshot. And then put it on. So now it is a you can see +2 weapon right there. We got the elemental weapon. And now we do extra damage with it with the lightning. Oh my word, I absolutely love this weapon so much. Oh my gosh, I love this build so much. I've had such a great time with this build. Also, kind of just going over things really quickly, you can kind of run the Surgeon's Subjugation Amulet once per long rest. When scoring a critical hit on a humanoid, the wearer can paralyze the target for 2 turns, which is nice. I ended up going for the shield because you don't really fight a bunch of humanoids at the later half of the game once this build kind of comes completely into fruition. So you could definitely make that swap here if you are kind of still running the critical hit build and you're still fighting a bunch of humanoids. You can run with that. There's also the Crusher's Ring, you know, for extra movement, also good. Ring of Protection, same thing, and the Ring of Regeneration. These are all good, but I really like running with these. So you can obviously swap out the Killer Sweetheart once it's done its thing, and then, you know, get the Ring of Protection, or the Ring of Regeneration, or the Crusher Ring, you know, just to get those extra bonuses once you've already spent this. But yeah, that's this build. This build is so much fun, and I can't wait to show you guys just how much damage this weapon can, or this, not just this weapon, but this build does. So let's go ahead and get into an example of combat with this build. Alright everybody, and here we are with an example of fighting. So I obviously snuck up on all these guys in stealth so that I could show off the extra sneak attack damage that we get with this build. Now obviously we won't always like be alone when it comes to these kinds of fights. I just wanted to show off that we get just some extra damage every once in a while when using this weapon. Oh my word, it seems like they're already trying to look for me. So let's just go ahead and start this fight right here and right now. We do not need to crit, that's completely fine. Boom. We do a whole bunch of damage. Oh yeah, we are assaulting someone. We are literally aiming and shooting at them. Okay. So now here comes the big guy right there. We got crit for 45 damage, but that's still fine. As long as we saved on maimed, we are all good. Now I wonder what this guy's gonna do. Is he gonna try and dash, or is he gonna be able to reach us? No, here comes the dash. All right, this is fantastic. They are all kind of grouped up. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing our first arcane shot with the bursting arrow. Now, this is a 90% chance to hit here. You see there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. You can kind of see it freaking out a little bit. So let's just go ahead and shoot right now. And we don't need to react at all. Boom, we did a bunch of damage there. Now let's go ahead and actually just go ahead and action surge. All right. Now, this guy right here is going to be a little bit of an issue. So let's go ahead and see. He is vulnerable to lightning, immune to psychic, and immune to poison. So that means we're going to go ahead and hit them with an enfeebling arrow. Now, what's great about this is they are in range of our ball aura. So we're going to be doing a bunch of damage with this shot. We do not need to crit. There we go. Look at that. One shot did that much damage. You can kind of see here. Let me go ahead and increase that. 44 piercing because it is vulnerable. So now we can go ahead and attack even more because we were able to get all that off. So let's go ahead and shoot this. Oh, curving shot. Go ahead and do that. And we hit that guy all the way in the back, and he immediately died. That's really funny. He got hit with a bunch of damage there. Well, let's go ahead and just enfeeble the target once again. Shoot this Steel Watcher. All right, see, we got the Executioner ability. So let's just go ahead and get this crit off of him. Boom, there we go. We got a critical hit. Now let's just go ahead and hit him with a normal arrow here. We do not need... Look at that. We already rolled a crit with a 16 because of all of our equipment. Boom, there we go. And now we got detonation imploding, so let's just go ahead and get out of the way of that. And with just like that, we knocked out a Steel Watcher and accidentally knocked out someone else while doing a good amount of damage to all these guys around. So let's just go ahead and end our turn there and see what happens in the next turn. They're going to throw a spear probably. Ooh, a bomb. All right, we'll just go ahead and use our charm on this guy. Go ahead and say he's pretty cute. Oh, he saved. All right, that's fine. All right, let's see. What else do these guys have for us? Another bomb. Oh, okay, we dodged that one. That one was the javelin. All right, this guy jumped. Now, what do you guys have for us here? Another throw. Okay, that was a little bit of explosion, but not much. Nice miss there. Fantastic. All right. Now it's this guy's turn. Throwing another thing at us. Dodge that javelin. Dodge another javelin. There we go. Easy. Our AC is just even not being max AC, we still don't get hit all that often. So there's a Mass Cure Wounds, which is a little annoying, but you know, that is fine. Okay, detonation, and there it goes. It explodes. Now, arrow of humanoid slaying, miss, fantastic, and another one, miss again. There we go. Okay, so now we have access to our piercing arrow, so we can go ahead. Can we even hit that guy in the back? We can. So this will hit 4 people with our arcane shot. Let's go ahead and shoot it. Boom. This gal immediately went down. These guys are almost out. We could just go ahead and do another piercing shot. We might be able to knock them all out with this shot. Boom, there we go. We love getting that Cold the Weak damage, and now it's just this guy left. So let's just go ahead and hit him with an enfeebling arrow so it's even harder for him to hit us. Boom. Oh, never mind. We got a crit and immediately knocked him out. So now you're like, oh my word, well, I've used all my arcane shots. I'm not going to be able to get him back. Well, luckily, they all come back on a short rest. So that was just a very easy fight to kind of showcase the power of this build. We didn't crit all that much, but honestly, we crit when we needed to. We got vulnerability when we got targeted. We got used that piercing arrow. Oh my word. So I hope this shows you guys how much fun this build really is. Just with doing a whole bunch of extra damage, you know, stacking everything, and we could just absolutely destroy everyone surrounding us. Basically, you kind of just saw that. We took out an entire army and a Steel Watcher in one turn. Oh my word. All it took was just one action surge, a bunch of arcane shots, and then we got crit at the beginning too, and we were still able to absolutely destroy everyone here. But yeah, that is the build that I have for the Arcane Archer. Let me know what you guys think of this build in the comments down below. If there's anything that you think will be even stronger for this build, or any sort of modifications that you would make to this build, please let me know down there as well. Make sure you guys also comment if there's any other builds or ideas that you have for Baldur's Gate 3 builds now with patch 8 out. I'm happy to be making guides for this game and having fun just playing and testing out everything that is new within patch 8. So yeah. thank you guys all so much. Please subscribe if you like the content that you guys are seeing, all these guides. But yeah, thank you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.